back to what we talked about with, the quote that you read out of the Recovering Agency book, that the church tells you what is right or wrong and how you are supposed to feel. Like when you do sin, this is what it feels like.
Yeah.
When you're righteous, this is what it feels like. It's not okay to think these things. If you've thought it in your mind, you've already committed the sin in your heart, those types of things. So check. Keep going.
Yeah, well, and I put down that confession has a broad spectrum of use. Temple recommend questions, all of those things.
Yeah.
Number 12, rewards and punishments used to modify behaviors, both positive and negative. You talked a little bit about that. Church discipline is one of the things that I put down there. And then we talked earlier about the threats of eternal punishment. If that isn't manipulation, then I'm not sure what it is, because there's no way for the church or any other organization to validate that what they're saying is in fact accurate.
Right.
And so it becomes a manipulation. When
I had my affair in 2004, I went through a disciplinary council, and one of the things that was really interesting to me is that the bishop came back and said, because then you got deployed shortly after the affair and shortly after that confession. And the bishop came back to me and they said, we prayed about it and we have felt that the Lord wants you to move home with your parents while your husband is on his deployment. So that way you don't cheat again. And number one, at that point, the affair was almost over. Actually, that shoved me into read my book. But one of the things that was interesting is I knew immediately that didn't come from God. Because if that bishopric had known about the abuse that I had suffered in my home as a teen, there's no way they would have told me to go back to my childhood home. So when you talk about the disciplinary council and stuff, yes, they remove certain privileges. Yes, it can isolate you from your community. Yes, they claim they do it from love. But at the end of the day, the member that is being disciplined, if they're trying their best to stay in this community, are very open to suggestion from a bunch of people who really don't get all of the things going on behind the scenes, that gives them authority and control in ways that are just not appropriate. They just aren't. Gratefully, my trauma response kicked in and I was like, well, hell no, I'm not going home. And Mason, also gratefully, you were like, yeah, Sarah, you're not going back to your parents, not after this. This is not wise.
Well, and ultimately, if you look at it from two different perspectives here, if you have a leadership that is used to being unquestioned, they come to you with unsolicited advice. They tell you what they think you ought to do, whether they couch it in the words the Lord said or I said.
Right.
They're coming to you with unrequested advice, unsolicited advice. When what needed to happen was that bishop needed to sit down with you and say, hey, I'm worried about you. You're right next to this person. You're having an affair. You're in this situation. Your husband is leaving. You're in a rough situation.
Right.
I want to know, what is your plan? What do you think would be best? I have some ideas, but frankly, I don't know you well enough to know what would be best. Can we talk about it? Can I help you as you sort through some of these things? If that had happened, you could have easily said, Bishop, I understand that going home to my parents probably seems like a good idea, but I suffered a lot of abuse in that home. And if I go home, and the worst of it happened after I had sex with that person.
Right.
If I go home now, I'm going to get exactly what I got then. And now I have a son to take care of too. I'm not doing that.
Well, we were in the process of adopting Briggs. So
right.
we had
you only had one at a time.
Sons. We had 1.5 sons.
Right. And all it takes is, the point is, all it takes is some conversation rather than unsolicited advice, because I'm your leader and I have a responsibility for you. Screw that.
Right. Well, and the issue is that Mormonism sets things up that makes the bishop the authority on my life and my spiritual direction. And that's really where the problem is that my bishop, he's a good man. I love that man. Despite everything we've been through together, I very much love that bishop. For one, he came back and admitted making a huge mistake, which, I was very grateful for on that.
Right.
But my point being was that he probably gave me unsolicited advice because he felt pressure to do so, because that was his role. His role was to say a prayer and ask God what is best for Sarah Westbrook at this time. And so it makes sense that he defaulted to, most Mormon families are supposed to be happy. They're not, but they're supposed to be. So let's send her back to her family. He had no idea
Right.
what I had been through.
And asking him to get to know each person individually that intimately is unrealistic.
Right. Well, because your average ward has 500-600 people on the roll, and then how many members are active is going to be around 200 maybe?
Right.
Okay, I'm a licensed professional counselor. I don't ever have a caseload over 32. I can't keep up.
Right.
And I do this.
And you get paid to do it.
I get paid.
It is your job.
Right. And I've got training and I don't do more than 32 people on my caseload because I can't.
Right.
I can't.
Right. So we're asking something that is unrealistic.
Inhumanely possible.
Yeah.
It's not humanly possible. It's not inhuman. Well, it is inhumane as well, in my opinion, but it's not humanly possible. Keep going.
Number 13, discourage individualism, encourage groupthink. What I wrote down is we have our own church lingo. It's the same everywhere you go, same dress, quiet melding to the same individual. And what I mean by that, you actually posted something on Facebook. Maybe this is what you were asking about earlier. The angels looking down on the earth, and they're all white men, I think, men. Right?
Yeah. Well, and it said, don't fornicate because the angels are watching you, and they're all white men. And I'm like, ooh, angel porn.
But the idea that
I'm going to hell,
and
everybody.
The church is getting better at not saying this anymore, but I don't think they're actually getting better at not believing it, is the idea that we're all going to be the same in heaven because we're all going to be like God. And yeah, it's a messy idea, and it's still very much alive in the church. Number 14.
The comments on that original post, because I shared it, but honestly, if you guys are on our Facebook page, you should click on the original post. There's something like 15,000 comments on it or something. And I sat there and read through those comments and could not stop laughing. They were hysterical.
Nice.
If you need a laugh, if you need a pick-me-up, head over to my business profile, Sarah Westbrook. Find me on Facebook. I've got my professional picture there and whatnot. But just go through that and find that meme. Click on it. Read the comments. You will not be disappointed. It was phenomenal. It was hilarious. Angel porn. Angel porn.
Number 14, impose rigid rules and regulations. And I put on my response, yep. Like, I don't even need to go into that. I feel like there's no need even to talk about it because it's so well defined by everything that we've talked about. 15, punish disobedience by beating, torture, burning, cutting, rape, or tattooing, branding. So on this one, I put no. I'm sure that there's some nuance to that idea, but if you look at it from face value, which is what I did, I don't feel like there's any punishment by beating, torture, burning, cutting, rape, or tattooing, branding. I don't think that there's anything like that.
Where I would disagree is that the church supports, still believes is effective, and up until it was made illegal in the state of Utah recently, paid for and advocated for conversion therapy for those in the LGBT population. And if we, by extension, include conversion therapy, then unfortunately, beating, shocking, waterboarding, those are things that occur in conversion therapy to de-gay somebody. And so is it something that's readily taught or practiced? No. But if you go back into our history a little bit, there's some pretty shitty things that go on.
Well, and that's a good point there because I hadn't really thought of those things. And so, yeah, I wouldn't expect those kind of things to be obvious for everyone. So thinking of the less obvious responses is very helpful. Number 16, threaten harm to family and friends.
It's existential harm.
I thought mostly of eternal things, right? Eternal separation. But it does lead to a culture of earthly separation to protect from apostate ideas and wickedness.
Right. Well, because I've been called an apostate many times now because I'm speaking out about my experiences in Mormonism and whatnot. So, in our here and now existence, there's a lot of social isolation that goes on. There's a lot of familial isolation that goes on. If that's not occurring in your family, just open your eyes and look around you. I guarantee it's occurring very much within somebody that you know.
Right.
And so I'm going to put a yes on that one.
Right. And some people don't, but there is very much a culture of it. It's almost like I'm not strong enough to be around those people. It's the idea of like, I'm an alcoholic, I'm not going to the bar kind of a thing for me.
If you'd like to ask me any question, no topic is off limits, then please join us Thursdays at 12:15 Central Standard Time for our Throwback Thursday show, where you can interact with me live. For more information, please visit our Daisy Girl Communications Facebook page or email me at daisygirlcommunications@gmail.com.
Despite the unshakable Iowa Corn-Cyhawk rivalry, there is one thing Iowa State and University of Iowa fans can both agree on: getting hyped for Unleaded 88. It's cleaner burning and better for your engine, and it's cheaper than other fuel options, making Unleaded 88 the clear fuel choice. If Iowa Corn-Cyhawk rivals can agree on it, you know it's worth the hype. So pump it up with Unleaded 88, grown by Iowa corn farmers.